Welcome, everybody, to the 15th edition of our Alliance AI Roundtable, talking about how CEOs are using AI. As I was thinking about it this week, it occurred to me that many inventions and developments in the world have taken hundreds of thousands of years to develop. It was about 400,000 years after fire was used to just warm people and cook meals before Edison, invented the light bulb, and it took him thousands of experiments. So it just occurs to me, AI, we're at that experimental stage, which is going to be for a good while, of just exactly how do we use this powerful new tool. There's no question it's powerful, but how do we use it? So frankly, these gatherings we've been doing over the last 15 months is geared to just do that, to share what's working and learn faster from each other. And we're making progress because over the past 15 months, we've asked 2 questions of each of you coming in. And back in May of 24, 70% of you were using AI in your business. And as of September, it's up to 93%. So I don't know who the 7% are, but 93% are using AI to try to drive efficiency or effectiveness in your businesses. And the percent that are driving positive and seeing meaningful results has increased from 50% 15 months ago to now 74%. So we're learning. And let's get going. I'd like to reintroduce our moderator, Matthew Swanson, Managing Partner of Silicon Valley Software Group, who will be talking with our guest CEO today, Vanessa Liu, CEO of Sugarwork. With that, take it over, Matthew.
All right. Well, thank you, Paul. And yeah, as noted, we are early on the adoption curve, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. So last time we spoke about, some more provocative topics like the AI agent org chart, and we showed how agents are increasingly able to take on entire roles inside of companies. While this is very interesting, and some companies are now actually hiring AI employees, it is happening. Most companies are much earlier on their journey. So in this session, we're going to step back and do a reality check and talk about the current state of AI adoption inside of enterprises. There was a recent MIT report that showed while AI budgets have ballooned, only 5% of AI initiatives are showing ROI. So we're going to go beyond that headline. I'm sure folks have seen that in their news feeds. But if you haven't had time to dive into the report, it's full of a wealth of insights, and we're going to unpack those here today to learn how those 5% of companies that are seeing value, how they're doing it. So we'll be joined by Vanessa Liu, who's the co-founder and CEO of Sugarwork, an AI startup that helps companies document their business processes so they can better apply AI for automation. We have covered that topic in the past, and so it will be great to hear from Vanessa on her experiences there. So Vanessa is a multi-time founder, has a deep expertise working with enterprises on new technologies, having previously held roles at SAP's venture arm, as well as at McKinsey. So Vanessa, welcome. We're so glad to have you here today. And to begin, we like to warm up our sessions with rapid fire questions to help give a sense of where you're coming from. So, this series is all around, adopting AI. And one of the first questions we like to ask is, what is one of your favorite AI tools that you use on a regular basis?
Well, thank you so much, Matthew. It's really great to meet everyone. One of my favorite tools is Granola. So I think that when it comes to AI note taking, I think many of us are using it. I happen to really like that particular one because I get to organize things into folders. And so that's one to check out if you're in search of an AI note taking tool.
That sounds very practical. And what about more generally in terms of keeping up with AI? It's changing every day. What are some maybe outlets or people you find valuable to learn from?
Great question. So there's this one particular thinker, his name is Azim Azar, He writes a newsletter called The Exponential View. It's actually very widely read by a lot of the tech CEOs, and he really breaks down all of the various aspects that are happening when it comes to not only in AI, but also when it comes to new energy sources, for instance. But he has a terrific email newsletter that you should subscribe to. He has a particular section called Short Morsels to Make You Appear Smart at Dinner Parties, which I particularly love, and chock full of data points in there.
Love it. We'll have to check that out. And then final question here. It's 1 year from now, and you're back at the round table. What are we all going to be talking about?
I think like in a year from now, we're going to be really just talking not only about how our businesses are being transformed, but also what are the people requirements that we're going to have, like the change management required. That part, like I'm only starting to hear a little bit of chatter about that. I think that's going to be a really big component a year from now. And how do you do that well? How do you lead well in that type of environment?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because we see all this fast-paced advancement of technology, but the AI diffusion problem is a whole nother challenge. And so I agree. I think that will be, more and more the discussion point. So let's jump in now. Let's get into our talk track. We have some slides here we're going to walk through showcasing, where are enterprises adopting AI today. So, first thing we're going to cover is the current state of adoption and look at trends by department, by industry, by use cases. And then we're going to talk about some of the findings from some recent reports on, where the biggest friction points companies are having in their adoption journey and how are they overcoming it? Topics like change management, technology considerations, and build versus buy. So, jumping in, there are two reports that we're going to be pulling from today, and we're going to send these slides afterwards. And there's links to the reports if you're interested in learning more. But basically, one report already mentioned MIT's recent survey of executives on adoption showing dramatic gaps in terms of successful versus unsuccessful. So we're going to unpack that. And then the other one is from the National Center of the Middle Market, which is a consortium that twice a year surveys about 1,000 executives to get a pulse on how these mid-market companies are performing. And the highlight in July's edition was around AI. So we're gonna compare some of those findings as well. So I'm going to start off with just a couple slides here on setting the context, and then we're going to dive into some Q&A. The first finding from the National Center of Mid-Market report is they ask this question every time. It's a biannual report, so twice a year they ask companies, if you had an extra dollar, where would you invest? And they ask it across the board from CapEx to equipment to M&A. And this last July survey, AI came out as the number one category. And this is profound for a couple of reasons. One, this category didn't even exist 2 years ago. So that change is, just by historical standards, incredibly fast. And the other is, this is a sample of companies of the mid-market. So companies of 10 million to a billion in revenue. So it's not just startups and big enterprises working with AI. The entire swath of the economy essentially is investing heavily in this capability. The flip side to it was from the MIT report, which showed, yeah, there's a lot of activity, but very few companies are seeing success with their AI. And that report went into kind of unpacking, the gaps, the drop-offs from, using public LLMs versus trying to create proprietary AI for inside the enterprise where the drop off is the most pronounced. And especially going from pilots to wide production. What they also found is that most AI use cases today are more of the perfunctory kind, like, summarize my email. I'm sure, everyone here is doing AI in some way there. It's hard to measure the ROI from doing those sort of activities. Where companies are really still early is going deeper into the workflows. So, automating a payroll process is still out of reach for most companies. So, with that kind of context, let's start with some of the findings from the report. The first thing that the MIT report looked into was adoption by industry. And they found some really big gaps in terms of, some industries are seeing transformational change. So the chart on the left is basically showing um, uh, changes that have that indicate an industry is going through some sort of fundamental shift. So either a shift in market shares changing hand, or um, there's a change in business models, something structural like that. And what they found is three industries in particular: um, professional services, media and telco, and technology are seeing these changes happen. Whereas some other industries like healthcare, financial services, et cetera, are still kind of doing more iterative uses of AI. So I wanted to start there and ask you, Vanessa, how would you account for that gap in adoption amongst pro serve, media, telco, and technology? Why might they be adopting more?
And those are very content heavy industries. If you think about media and telecom and the types of insights, the types of work that you're doing. So, on the media side, if you think about advertising, you think about marketing, that's really a large component. If you think about professional services, and obviously legal is a very big area, accounting is a really big area where traditionally you have like a lot of work that has it's content driven, like you're doing drafts of contracts, you're doing you're going over particular aspects that are written down, and to be able to analyze that faster. This is like very classic what the LLMs are really geared to do, to take large amounts of prose and to be able to generate more of it, and also at the same time to be able to do analyses. So that's why we're seeing it. When it comes to technology, I think over there, a lot of it has to do with, actually the engineering side. And
Mhm.
so that's where a lot of money is being spent, where in the past you had to have quite large engineering teams do coding. Nowadays, you can really shave that down quite a lot. So it's not surprising that those industries, like the content heavy ones, like professional services and media in particular, are seeing a lot, but the technology side has also been equally interesting. And this doesn't mean like, I mean, if we think about like cloud adoption, if we also think about just like the adoption to the internet about 25 years ago and seeing which industries came online, a lot of it had to do with which industries are the most prone to getting very quick ROI wins. I think that's what we're seeing here. That's exactly what's happening. So I'm not surprised at all by this.
That makes sense. At the same token, these industries that have adopted have adopted very quickly. Do you see from the other industries here who have yet to embrace AI? Is there one in particular that you think is next?
I think that healthcare and financial services are really the ones where I'm hearing a lot of chatter. There are lots of now vertical solutions that are being geared towards those industries. In healthcare, not surprising, like the ones that are really getting quite a lot of buzz, at least like in terms of potentially being large enough to acquire by other companies, are ones that are helping physicians when it comes to everyday note taking, like the soap notes that you see. And so there are companies that are really just diving into that space right now. But on the other side, when it comes to things like prior authorization, being able to help physicians be able to say, like, well, this is what I'm going to recommend. Can I then quickly be able to get that authorized for my particular patient? I'm seeing a lot of move when it comes to that as well. And on the financial services side, definitely when it comes to just like back end automation processing, being able to say in the past, like things like everybody has had a go at trying to make these very, very mundane processes in terms of data entry into ERPs more seamless. Now I'm seeing a lot of, can we think about how do we do that, do things better when it comes to customer relationships, being able to get that type of insights out there, being able to ensure that that information is carried from account team to account team. So that's like what I'm hearing a lot about right now.
Those horizontal use cases, definitely. And that actually leads us into the next insight from the MIT report, which showed, where is AI spend by department? And by and large, over half of the spend is going into just two departments, sales and marketing. And they bucketed everything else as operations. Further, they found that 70% of new budget is going to sales and marketing. So not only is sales and marketing historically where the money has been going into, and it's about $40 billion in total, which is a pretty vast sum. It's growing. And so, maybe first, can you maybe synthesize like why do you think companies are investing so heavily there? And then is there a particular item on this chart that you see, a lot of companies seeing success with?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, like when I saw this chart initially in the MIT report, what struck me was that like the buckets are actually more use cases rather than thinking about functionally what is happening in those areas. So if like personalized content for campaigns is very much a use case. I think just taking a step back and looking at this, sales and marketing is where you can get very clear ROI. Like, can you measurably be able to get more meetings on your docket for your salespeople? That's something that is like a KPI that is very visible. Can I also just close contracts faster by being able to like score leads? So I'm not surprised that sales and marketing had been out there upfront because that's also where usually companies are very much willing to spend. They're like, no, this is if I could put in those dollars on the sales side, and it will get my team to become more effective. Of course, I want to give that a try. Um, but what I'm really very interested in is on the right side, and particularly when it comes to internal workflow orchestration. I actually think that that is where a lot of optimizations can happen. I think so many of us in our roles as CEOs know intrinsically that if that there is like a lot of low hanging fruit when it comes to optimization of areas that traditionally have been very manual. And I think that that is what that bucket represents. How can you optimize things that are incredibly manual and also involves many different parts of your organization? Baton handoffs are notoriously very manual. If you go from one department to another, like if I want to hand over something from product marketing to product development to say like the regulatory team, that's usually a very, very manual process. Being able to help orchestrate that so that there's more seamless flows is just more like a way of seeing where a lot of SaaS tools have taken us over the last years, trying to make those smoother. But now with AI, I actually think we're going to see like a lot of leapfrog when it comes to efficiency gains there.
That makes a ton of sense. Yeah, I mean, it's basically like the lift all boats types of application, right? Whereas the sales and
Yeah.
marketing is really aligned on the revenue funnel, so it's easier to show quicker ROI. There might be more, larger lifts potentially in these cross-functional use cases. So I think that makes a ton of sense. In terms of practical use cases, you shared a great one about just, baton handoffs. One I'll point at where we're seeing companies get success is around that feature, that use case of lead scoring. So,
Mhm.
traditionally companies do point-based scoring. Maybe they try to measure if someone comes to a particular website or responds to an email, and it's really hard to tinker with that score to get signal. Just a really quick hack we've seen. Companies take their customer ledger, put it into a reasoning model,
Mhm.
and just ask it, how likely is
Yeah,
this customer going to purchase it? You do that across all your customers, you actually get a lot of signal for
yeah,
not a lot of effort. So anyway, just some low-hanging use cases there.
it's a great use case. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be curious to hear other folks in the breakout sessions what they're seeing. So, moving into some of the friction points when it comes to adoption, the MIT report went into looking at the self-reported challenges executive face, and in rank order, some of the challenges were unwillingness to adopt new tools, um, model output quality issues. Complaints about the user experience of these tools, lack of sponsorship from executives, and then change management. So a lot of traditional problems here. So maybe I'll ask you, Vanessa. Are there any anecdotes you can share about companies who might have faced one of these buckets of concerns, and how they overcame that friction for success?
Yeah, I actually think what was really coming out very clear in the MIT report is that it's a lot of the reasons why deployments are not
All
working
right.
well is much more about the lack of customization. And so if you look at the barriers to digitization, what is lack of customization a result of? It could be not having the knowledge at your fingertips to like know where to go, not knowing exactly what to do, thinking about things like, well, I don't have like staff like ready to go to think about what's there. And so there's like there's always like well, I'm going to wait and see what others do, or I'm going to wait and wait for like my vendor of choice to come and talk to me about what it is that they're implementing. I think like what I'm starting to see now, because I primarily work with private equity backed portfolio companies where time is of the essence, where they have like a very, very much like a burning platform to say, this year we're going to try to um, get out as much cost as possible. And then a lot of that's going to have to do with not just like just your typical cost cutting, but how can we automate as much as we can? And so when I start talking to C-suite executives about that, and they're like, look, frankly, I just don't know exactly where to start, but I have an inkling. Like people tell me that this part of the organization is really manual. So I am just going to go in and just try to understand, how do people actually do things around here, and get that knowledge of like, how is work actually done? How do people do that? That's like one thing that I've seen again and again. Some of our customers like be able to, in just like a matter of weeks, be able to say, that hunch that we had, now we know exactly what it is that we should be customizing in terms of one, two, and three, um, like three projects that will be very customized to our situation that we can then go. So being very tactical about understanding what is going on in your organization, having a clear idea of the business context is really important.
Yeah, well, it sounds like what you're saying is AI is not ready to tell us how to solve our problems. We have to
No,
be able to describe it before AI can help. And I, I think that
exactly.
reality is, going to be here for a while.
Exactly. It's like any one of us, like you bring in that rock star recruit to the company, like yes, they're going to have some type of idea of where to go, but you're like, wait a second, you need to spend your first like 60 days walking the halls, understanding what is going on so that you could be having the most impact, and being able to know where you're going to be able to make the most change. So just like with people, and you bring in like fantastically talented people in, you're not just going to expect to be like, I'm just going to plop you down here and you're going to succeed. You have to be able to onboard them effectively. Same thing
Yep.
with these powerful AI tools.
Exactly. And so that's kind of the next layer down inside of the reports is they covered, okay, let's, they looked at the employee adoption frictions. So there was, they looked first at the executive adoption and then they looked at users. And so, the first thing they reported on is, this dilemma, which is really frustrating in that, AI is being widely adopted. Employees are using tools constantly to get their work done. The problem is they're using the public LLMs and they're not using the company's provided AI tools. So the MIT report looked into that to ask, well, why are employees comfortable with these public tools and not the companies? And the common answers were, um, you know, ChatGPT answers are better than my company's
Mhm.
tools. I'm more familiar with the ChatGPT interface than I am with the software tool my company provided me, and I trust the ChatGPT response more than the tool I was provided. So, one interesting anecdote there I'll share is, the gap that I've seen with companies is, trying to fight this user experience challenge. Like clearly employees like this new way of chatting with software rather than clicking around on it. And so there's like a paradigm shift that's missing where, if companies, can have one of those early wins where they take some, traditional software interface and then they turn it into a conversational flow where
Yeah.
they just have a natural dialogue, it really can open up a whole new spectrum of use cases. And I don't know, have you seen anything like that? Any use cases where a company took a traditional piece of software and then turned it into more of a conversational flow?
All the time. I think like right now, the whole aspect of being able to have more of a conversational interface with the data that you have, being able to think about how you can get that type of like analysis at your fingertips. Like I'm seeing companies try to do that when it comes to like dashboards and analytics tools. And to be able to say, like, I want to be able to, for instance, do a quick sales analysis of these regions, and like instead of having to go through and think about all the various sources, you'd be like, I'm just going to put up all of my sources, just like what you had said, and to be able to run that analysis, like you're able to do things like that. And I think that like the types of companies I'm seeing do a lot more of this. They're essentially, you're talking a little bit about like I think that the way the MIT report talked about like this shadow AI like usage that's happening in companies. There are a lot of people who are just like, they're like, well, I'm using this ChatGPT interface. The companies I'm seeing that are very just like, hey, we should look at the innovation in terms of how our teams are using this, and then think about what to get or what to build, are the ones that are succeeding. They're literally having people like share, what are you doing right now, which is really different from what others are doing, and they highlight that. And so I think like one such company is doing quite a lot when it comes to like this analysis, which they used to have like lots of analysts just crunch numbers. They're like, well, we're able to now have that at our fingertips. We're able to make quicker decisions. And so now they're starting to think like, oh, what can we do to make that even more embedded into our workflow, and also to make sure that the data is not going to be going back to the public LLMs, right? And to think about that aspect. So that's, I'm starting to see, um, and it's only natural that like the LLMs are incredibly powerful now. And I don't know how many of you have been looking at what each one can do with every single release. I think like what's so fascinating nowadays is that the sentiment analysis that the LLMs have is just that much more sophisticated, and where they're able to crunch so much more data. And I think that that is what a lot of the company-based tools that they're using, they might not have caught up as quickly because, like, look, with model changes, like it might not be catching up as quickly. And so it's natural that we're seeing that little bit of a divide, but I think that is going to start shrinking over, we're definitely going to see the shrinking over the next year. But also what we're seeing here in terms of comments, like I can't customize it for a specific workflow, or we have breaks in edge cases. That is much more about the fact that you didn't put in the right data to train in your AI. And so if you don't put in that data, you're not going to be able to get the most out of a generic application because it just simply doesn't have that data to work with.
Makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. Just to summarize kind of the paradigm shift, we've seen companies where, once they set up an email to update a sales record, and they can just put in natural language, hey, I had this conversation, we covered these topics, etc. And the AI then automatically populates the CRM. Paradigm shift. Now, why would you
Yes.
ever ask your sales teams to go and do that again? And so, I think there's a lot more examples like that where once that change in mindset shifts, a lot more adoption can be unlocked. And so we do have some more slides here that we're going to leave behind. Some really interesting findings around, success rates on building versus buying, on some use cases that are more traditional getting adoption. We also have some leave behinds here for what Vanessa is doing on using AI to actually automate generating the business process documentation, which is a pretty fascinating use case. I haven't come across anything like it, so I thought it was pretty novel. And I'm sure Vanessa would be around after our breakouts to share more if you're curious. But with that, we're going to transition now, and hopefully some of these insights carry over into our breakouts where we all get together and share our firsthand accounts of where we're having adoption with our AI. Paul, can you please take us away?
Yeah, thank you, Matthew and Vanessa. And just as we enter our breakout rooms, uh, you'll should have a moderator in there. Just quickly introduce yourselves, like 30 seconds, all just and put your names if you haven't already, the name of your company behind your first name. If you click on the three dots, you can rename yourself. Add that. And the moderators will take some notes of any brilliant insights and such, and we'll be coming back to the main lobby before we end at 3:30 in Pacific time, California time. And for those of you who want to continue the conversation, I'm pleased to that Matthew and Vanessa will be joining me in the room, staying afterwards for a little bit for any follow-up questions or thoughts you might want to share, and then continue the conversation. So with that, we're going to go into our private groups, and I may be shifting a few people as just to balance the numbers just in the first few minutes. So just get rolling and have fun.